All right, let's do a little bit of news of the day type thing. So Jordan Weal has signed a 2-year extension, $1.4 million a year with the Montreal Canadiens. That's a drop actually from the $1.75 million he made in the last 2 years on a deal that he signed. Remember when Weal was going to be UFA and there was a lot of talk that Jim Benning really wanted him. He'd gone on a nice little run at the end of the year for Philly, but I was worried that he wouldn't be able to live up to whatever contract he ended up getting. He was actually a pretty decent pickup for the Montreal Canadiens, of course, from Arizona, and Arizona got him from Philly. So nice to see that he's found a team that'll keep him around for a couple more years. The whole Toronto thing is weird. So, I was watching Brian Burke yesterday on Tim and Sid, and I do my best not to talk a whole lot with the Leafs, but with the way this all fell apart and with all of this stuff coming out, it's strange. So, Burke was saying that they have 5 guys employed for analytical purposes. So 5 guys doing analytics for the Maple Leafs. And he said, I wouldn't have more than 2 or 3. And he talked a lot about Dubas and how this team was built for skill, and not size. And he doesn't think that Babcock and Dubas are on a different page. He figures you're on the same page when it comes to building the team. So there's a debate about that. But then, watching Dubas yesterday and watching his press conference where he was talking about Jake Gardiner, I thought it was really interesting when he said he doesn't like how people bring up Jake Gardiner. Basically, he said he doesn't like how people bring up how he's played in Game 7s and that you can't just take small snippets and use those to define a player. Now, while I agree, there's a reason Justin Williams is seen as being Mr. Game 7, and for me, yeah, it's important not to judge a guy based on 1 or 2 bad games, and I definitely have said that numerous times on the channel. When you talk about a guy and you talk him up and you say, oh, he's great, just forget about, and he even said too, he said, you can't judge a guy based on 1 series. The entire series? And then he took the blame for everything, including their penalty kill, because he said he must not have given the coach the right players so that the penalty kill worked. And then he talked about how good the power play was, and all I could think was, it wasn't that great going into the playoffs, though. That power play had been struggling. And I think maybe where the analytics get caught up is, you might, over an 82-game schedule, come out with some really nice numbers, but if at key moments your roster doesn't perform well, all those wonderful numbers you put up over an 82-game schedule, that wonderful average you have, doesn't really mean a whole lot. So what Burke said about this was that he figures that analytics are, a part of it. They're not the whole thing. And that he does feel like there are some in hockey right now that have the analytics pushed so far ahead that they're losing track of other, what he deemed to be more important parts of the game. And I've kind of been saying that the whole time on this channel, that I like analytics. And I was going to buy a book on hockey analytics, but I was thumbing through it, and I'm like, holy crap, no. And I put it back. Started getting a headache just looking through it. Because I do think there is an over-analysis that goes on. And sometimes it's like, we see this big, long-term, oh, look at this guy's great. But then in a really big game where he lets you down, you turn around and go, yeah, but look at these numbers, they're great. Did you see what happened? So Brian Burke's saying that the eyeball test is always going to be important, and there are those in analytics that have argued to me, no, it's not important. What you see in a game is not important. And I know there's people who say, oh no, people don't say that. There are people who believe that because we can't see every area of the ice at once, that we don't know the numbers and the numbers should be trusted. There has to be a middle ground, and maybe in the case of Toronto, maybe they're so far into that analytics, maybe that is part of what's holding them back from really getting to that contender position. Next year is huge, because this year really feels like a step back. Okay, that being said, their lockers are cleaned out, they're gone. There shouldn't be anything new about the Leafs until Marner signs or gets that offer sheet. That's why Dubas is saying he's got to sign him before July 1st, because he doesn't want to have to worry about an offer sheet. And he wouldn't have said, I have to get this done before July 1st, unless he was worried that an offer sheet might come in. Ted Lindsay finalists were announced. This is voted on by the NHL Players Association. This is for the best player in the league. Different than the Hart Trophy, and I've said, The Ted Lindsay Award probably means more to players than the Hart Trophy, to be completely honest. The Lindsay finalists are Connor McDavid, Patrick Kane, and Nikita Kucherov. I'm predicting Connor McDavid because he's the best player in the league, though I would not be entirely surprised if Kucherov gets it. It's funny how everybody's piling on Kucherov right now, and that his season is kind of being buried. But the truth is, with 128 points this year, the best scoring season ever by a Russian-born player in NHL history, he was dominant for most of this season. And shutting him down and knocking him off his game is a huge part of the reason why Columbus was able to sweep Tampa aside. So the argument that, they're a great team, they don't really need Kucherov, I would say the first round of the playoffs proved they absolutely have to have Kucherov playing at the top of his game now, or they're in trouble. Because when he was off his game in that first round, they got knocked out and quickly. Playoff news, Krejci's day-to-day after the Riley Nash hit last night. I'm not upset about the Nash hit. These things happen. It's hockey. And then Brad Marchand, of course, leading into Game 2, he started trolling Columbus. He trolled Atkinson. And I have to say, and I know Columbus fans are upset, but you have to love his answer. They asked him about stepping on Cam Atkinson's stick on a face-off and breaking it. And he said, I think Atkinson was trying to dull my blade, so I'd have to go and sharpen up my skates in the back. I don't really take kindly to that kind of thing. I'm paraphrasing, but it's a funny quote. It's sort of like, you punched me in the face. My hand really hurts. Your face was in the way. That's how that feels. So he's definitely trying to get under their skin. And then with Riley Nash taking out Krejci, and they asked him, and he said, I don't think Nash threw a hit in his entire 2 years in Boston. That just shows that everybody's bought into the system they're teaching in Columbus. I liked Riley Nash as a Bruin, but I have to admit, that's some pretty grade A-level trolling by Brad Marchand. And for people who hate him, that's going to make them dislike him even more. And for people who think he's entertaining, this will just add to that. Again, his stick was right there, and that could have dulled my blade. Fantastic. Bill Foley. So, the owner of the Vegas Golden Knights, he has grand dreams. So the plan was, we're going to win a Stanley Cup in 6 years. We'll make the playoffs in 3. We'll win a Stanley Cup in 6. They go to the final in the first year, and that speeds everything up. And he's saying in the interview that Vegas, he felt, was a better team in year 2 than they were in year 1. That they had a clear path to the Stanley Cup final if they would have gotten past San Jose. I don't see it that way. I think they would have had tremendous trouble with the Colorado Avalanche. And now he wants them to be a dynasty. Now he's not just saying we want a Stanley Cup in 6 years. He's saying, I want multiple Stanley Cups. To which every owner around the NHL goes, so do we. And he wants the Vegas Golden Knights to be a global brand. So he's reached out to all of the other Rocky area states minus Colorado. And he wanted them to be the team of the Rockies, and now he wants it to be a global brand. I will say this. There's a lot of Vegas gear that I see in general. Vegas is marketed very, very well. The idea that it could be a global brand, absolutely. It is a well-known logo. Now, I have the secondary on the board because I think the secondary is kind of deadly, and now there's speculation on what their third jersey could be for next year, because they're going to have a third jersey next year, and it apparently is going to be gold. So I just picture it being like that really shiny lame and really slippery, and just guys slide off of them. That's the way I'm picturing it. I know that's not what's going to happen. But again, Bill Foley, he's sort of like a kid in a candy store, and at least that's how I see it. And he's just, really enjoying this being the 31st franchise thing. But, wanting to build a dynasty, it's just, I envy those goals. I do. It'd be like if I came out and told you guys, yeah, so my channel passed 85,000 subscribers. My goal is to hit 4 million by the end of the year. I think we can hit, I don't think you can, well, mathematically you can, just like mathematically, sure, they could be a dynasty. they could end up winning no cups. This is the NHL with the way that parity is. That's just how it works. You look at this year, there were a lot of teams that looked like they were destined for some greatness here, and it didn't work out for them. So, I envy them. And then there's people coming out, and I have to do this as sort of an add-on to yesterday, where the league apparently had called Bill Foley, relayed that information to George McPhee, who came out and said, they both came out and said the league had apologized for the Game 7 thing with San Jose. And there are a lot of people saying, well, since he couldn't name the person from the league that called him, then he's probably lying. I don't think Bill Foley would lie about that. What I think is more likely is somebody from the league called him and said, "No, don't say anything, but we messed that up." That was a call that probably shouldn't have gone that way. So just don't say anything. And then he came out and said, so the league's apologized. That I could see that. And I again. It's one of those things that it's just this is the new reality now. This 31st team throws everything else out of whack, and I have a funny feeling that these guys will be the news generators in the States, the same way that Toronto's the news generator in Canada. They will be in the headlines a lot, for great reasons, for horrible reasons, and for baffling reasons, much like Toronto. And your perspective on how you view the team will be your perspective on which of the news is great, which of it is bad, and which of it is baffling. So there you go. News of the day. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.